Over the eons of humanity's vast existence here on planet Earth, we've made incredible and often controversial progress along the way, but ever since we've been keeping track, and likely since way before that, we've had two besties along the way, both in the domestication of the natural world around us, right? But also in the domestication of ourselves. These two Darwinian homeboys have contributed more than any other influence to our world, our perspective, how we live, how we work. In fact, no two greater friends does any singular man have than these two best buds to humanity on a whole. It's incredible when you think about it. Cannabis, Canis lupus, and we ourselves form a super chill trifecta of unstoppable dope freshness that you just know the aliens are totally jealous of. First thing, I want to establish that both of these species aren't just helpful, but essential in establishing our place on this planet and just in our development in general as a species. Wolves, dogs have helped man to hunt since probably before the first houses were ever built when we were still living in caves. Maybe not even quite yet human, but we all know they have myriad jobs besides, right? Sledding medicine through the Alaskan bush, as enlisted officers in our armed forces and like war heroes. I mean, even now, dogs are making some of the most advanced medical diagnoses and predicting seizures and all this stuff with zero medical equipment. I mean, it's mind-blowing, and the list goes on. And cannabis, for its part, has made just as many contributions and for just as long. I don't know if we have a recorded time when man wasn't allied with the cannabis plant. Obviously, the buds were found to smoke quite nicely and the fibers wove beautifully. I mean, we all know that hemp sails are what carried our people across the great oceans, and we wore hemp fabric to protect us from the elements. Not to mention the hemp seed, which is an incredible blessing. It's what's called a complete protein. It contains 9 amino acids that our body does not make. Of the 14 amino acids that we need, we can only synthesize 5, and coincidentally, the hemp seed contains all 9 and 3 additional amino acids. So it feeds us, it clothes us, it's taken us to the 4 corners of the globe, not to mention the mind-expanding relationship we've had with the cannabis buds. So then what makes these two different from the other domesticated species? Great question. For one, there's just so many uses. I mean, if you think about it, these two groups, these two races, if you will, are leagues beyond any other plant or animal species that we've domesticated. And then there's just this sheer length of time. Both hemp and dogs really just seem to have always been there. Is that by design? Some might argue yes, but myriad uses. Let's start there. Now, if you think about it, most species that we domesticate do one thing. We get like one thing from them, right? Corn, wheat, it's food. Sheep have wool, they also have milk. That's really multitasking as far as the domesticated species. Meat, I don't know if I would necessarily count because historically, we've gotten that from undomesticated species just as often. Now, what does happen is we often find an additional or byproduct use for whatever it is that we're harvesting, and a lot of times it's really just to cope with waste. But with both hemp and doggos, they both had several roles that they played that were mutually beneficial before we even started trying to domesticate either of them. That is in stark contrast to literally every other species we've domesticated, right? With everything else, it's been a fight against nature, right? We're struggling to bend this species' will to our own. That's what domestication is. Then we also have to selectively breed and clone certain species even. In fact, every banana you've ever had is a genetic clone. Isn't that crazy? But Mary Jane and Fido both benefit us naturally in all their forms. Now, yes, we can and do selectively breed up certain aspects and characteristics, right? But that stuff was there to begin with. If you look at corn and wheat, avocados, watermelon, none of that looks anything like what we're eating today. It's like we had to turn them into food over time. In fact, let's use an analogy. You can MK Ultra your kid through singing and dancing lessons, right? Until they can belt out Hit Me Baby One More Time for $5 million a pop, right? It can be done. That's your corn, that's your watermelons, right? That's your bananas. But domesticating pot was completely different. The domesticating pot, to stay on that same analogy, would be like asking Prince if he knows any good songs. He proceeds to play Purple Rain, the entire album, just off the top of his head. You hire him as your resident Saturday night, and then, without even asking, he proceeds to cook everyone pancakes after rocking a pickup game of skins versus blouses. Do you see the difference I'm trying to illustrate and how it's like a million times more significant? Now that brings me to my final point. Why? What makes these two species, these two races, different? What makes these two so much more significant to us and we to them? Let's look at dogs, for example. Do you have to force a retriever to retrieve? No, right? Why? Well, because one day there was a dog who just really got great joy out of retrieving. And in his faithfulness to his human, he was able to sire many pups and became a great householder of his people, if you want to think of it like that, which I do. And so this has happened countless times in countless ways throughout our history and relationship with doggos. And so not only have those traits and behaviors been bred into our relationship, but that tendency to just be partners and benefit each other has as well. Now what's interesting is, in contrast to most domesticated species, dog rarely prospered from anatomical characteristics alone, but from his behaviors and personality traits, which then dictated any anatomical adaptation over, generations of selective breeding. And the reason personality traits and behavior is so much more significant is, what good is a big, strong dog if he's too territorial to work security and he tries to fight everybody in the tribe, right? Or even more, let's look at a behavior. What good is a dog that's incredible at hunting if he's not willing to hunt with us, right? So behavior, if that's the cause, what's the root of behavior? I guess you could argue genetics, right? But what's at the root of any being's behavior? Their intention, right? For example, there's never been a wild horse that's just walked up to a guy and been like, "Hey, wanna ride?" They just don't have that intention. In fact, to this day, we have to break every single horse. It's not inherent to their nature. Whereas a dog wants to retrieve. Now, we know that wolf packs will appeal to an apex predator like a puma.
So the biologist told me where the area where there's a lot of wolves. And so the lions are so much more successful at killing than the wolves, that the wolves just become somewhat lazy, and they'll get in these little packs and they'll literally find a big tom and they'll just follow him. And so what this cat is doing is, scientists have observed him killing deer, and he'll literally kill and cache deer and sheep, so that when the wolves find his caches, the wolves will eat, and so then he can go and eat in peace himself.
Wow, so he doesn't get fucked with by the wolves.
Yeah.
So he's leaving them food.
He's leaving them food, which is why the ranchers thought, because they're like, he killed a deer and he didn't do anything with it. He just killed a deer. And so they're like, no, he killed a deer. And it was funny because when we tracked him that day, he brought us to 9 kill sites.
But it feels different with us, right? Where they seem more like a subject to a powerful king, just though he may be. With humans and dogs, it feels more like extended family, right? Partners, not subjects. We actually get a mutual oxytocin hit, and you can't fake biology, right? So that comes from a genuine connection, a genuine love, genuine care, right? And I would argue it's probably the same with hemp, to whatever extent they're able to share such a connection, right? Now, I know modern science is only just beginning to approach the idea that a plant might be conscious or have awareness or perception, right? But we mustn't take that to mean that it's only now becoming a reality. What I mean is, plants aren't becoming conscious now. Like, however sentient a plant may or may not be, they already are, right? We're just finding out. I hope that makes sense. But I would argue that to whatever extent a plant can be sentient or conscious, that hemp wants you to partake in the fruit of those good intentions we mentioned earlier, right? In my eyes, it stands to reason that hemp might be pleased, overjoyed when a harvest becomes a sale, right? Or clothes an entire village. I mean, we're making houses out of it even nowadays. And really, in the truest sense, just as the dog race, the cannabis race is truly man's best friend. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me for today's video. I had a really great time. I love this topic. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, kind of metaphysics with maybe a touch of animism, then consider tossing me a like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Any or all of that is super duper appreciated. In the meantime, have a good time, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.